stakeholders are here. Scientists, policymakers, indigenous peoples, practitioners, youth, financiers, activists, artists, and more. We need everyone for a new vision for Earth. A vision that takes us beyond surviving, a vision that charts the way forward to thriving.
We want to unite around a possible new dream, around some solutions that we have, the places where we can find hope, that new vision for Earth.
A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, depending on where you're listening to us from around the world. My name is Ruth Nesoba. I'm the Vice President of the Kenya Editors Guild. I'm also the Regional Deployments and News Gathering Editor, BBC World Service, based here in Nairobi. It gives me so much pleasure to be with you here this evening, and it's very exciting that we have arrived to the end of this GLF 2023 hybrid conference, exploring together new visions for Earth and what a journey it has been. I think many of you have seen yourselves on the screen, some of the highlights that we've gathered over the 2 days that we have been here. And thank you so much for making the time to be here with us, here in the room, and all those who joined us online. It's because of you that we made it. Without you, we would not have been. And I hope you have been able to also get some little time to go and enjoy the rich Kenyan culture and formed new partnerships and friendships from all over the world. Amidst the challenges that we have heard about the climate change crisis that is before us, I know that there is some hope for a just transition to a decarbonized world, because every degree matters and we must act now. That is the message. As you have seen from the latest IPCC 6th assessment report, it highlighted the need, the urgent need for action, and it predicts a more likely than not scenario of a 1.5 degrees Celsius rise in the temperatures of the world before the up from the pre-industrial levels. And this may lead to irreversible losses and critical climate tipping points, and that's where we are heading to. But we need to understand why we haven't fully transitioned away from fossil fuels, why we haven't protected our forests enough, and why we have not reduced deforestation. These are some of the critical questions that require our attention and collective action, and these are some of the things or issues that we're going to discuss at this closing plenary. So together as thought leaders, as participants, as experts, we have the power to define the next steps that are needed to address the climate crisis. And it's because of this that we have put up a very incredible panel, a very incredible set of experts from around the world who will be speaking to us and speaking to about the issues that we've just talked about. So it gives me much pleasure and honor to introduce our first speaker, Her Excellency Marina Silva, Minister of Environment and Climate Change from Brazil. She's also a very world-renowned environmentalist and an advocate. I spoke to her earlier and asked her to share her vision for Earth, given the current climate and biodiversity crisis that we have. Let's watch.
Agradeço pela oportunidade de poder participar desse seminário de celebração. De fato, nós estamos vivendo um momento histórico da trajetória da humanidade, em que os ideais identificatórios que nos trouxeram até aqui se mostram insuficientes para que possamos dar continuidade à nossa jornada em condições minimamente dignas para a condição que promove a vida humana e as outras formas de vida na Terra. Nós estamos vivendo e pagando um preço muito alto pelas mudanças que tivemos nos ideais identificatórios que nos trouxeram até o início da Revolução Industrial, que na minha opinião era o ideal do ser, e passamos para o ideal do ter. O problema é que nós temos mais de 8 bilhões de seres humanos com capacidade infinita de desejar, e as pessoas desejam ter coisas e o planeta já se mostra insuficiente para atender todas essas demandas. De sorte que os ideais identificatórios que poderão nos ajudar a salvar a vida e a salvar o equilíbrio do planeta é aquele que é capaz de usar com sabedoria os recursos naturais, cultivar e, ao mesmo tempo, guardar esses recursos, protegendo, inclusive, a suficiência necessária dos serviços ecossistêmicos. Os ideais identificatórios que tínhamos até a Revolução Industrial, sobretudo até o mercantilismo, era o ideal do ser. Os gregos queriam ser sábios e livres, os romanos queriam ser grandes e fortes, provavelmente os egípcios queriam ser imortais. Na Idade Média, as pessoas, mesmo tendo cometido muitos pecados em nome da santidade, queriam ser santas. Mas, no mercantilismo, as pessoas fizeram um deslocamento para o ideal do ter. E, no meu entendimento, é impossível atender essa demanda porque os recursos naturais são finitos e a nossa capacidade de desejar, como alguém já disse, é infinita. O novo ideal identificatório terá que migrar do ideal do ter para o ideal do ser, sair dos limites extensivos e ir para os limites intensivos. Nos limites extensivos, nós estamos disputando recursos, coisas. Nos limites intensivos, nós podemos desenvolver outros aspectos da nossa condição humana. Há limites para ter, mas não há limites para ser. Há limites para continuar usando indefinitivamente combustível fóssil, mas não há limites para fazer a melhor poesia, não há limites para compor a melhor música, não há limites para dar a melhor aula. Como eu costumo dizer, acho que as ferramentas, a maior parte, nós já temos. Nós já temos respostas de como produzir energia do sol, energia do vento, energia da água, energia da biomassa, para substituir a matriz fóssil de suprimento de energia. Infelizmente, essa resposta técnica não tem sido acompanhada da devida decisão política e do devido compromisso ético de usá-la em benefício das grandes transformações que precisam acontecer. O papel do Brasil é o de liderar pelo exemplo. O nosso maior vetor de emissão de CO2 é a transformação do uso da terra e desmatamento. E o Brasil tem compromisso com desmatamento zero. Agora, nós precisamos fazer essa mudança e mudando ao mesmo tempo o modelo de desenvolvimento. Não apenas do Brasil, mas do mundo. Porque mesmo que a gente chegue ao desmatamento zero, se o mundo não parar de usar combustível fóssil, a Amazônia vai ser destruída do mesmo jeito. Portanto, é usar as respostas técnicas que temos com o compromisso ético necessário para fazer as transformações que o mundo precisa. Da minha perspectiva, o futuro da Amazônia só tem de que ela continue sendo a Amazônia, de que seus povos originários continuem fazendo o seu percurso histórico, social, cultural, em todos os sentidos. Para que se possa fazer com que ela continue sendo a Amazônia, é preciso que façamos a mudança que o mundo precisa levar em conta de fazer, que é encerrar a era dos combustíveis fósseis. Enquanto continuarmos financiando os produtos que são carbono intensivo e a matriz energética fóssil, a Amazônia estará em risco. É difícil fazer essa transição? Com certeza não é fácil, mas não há capacidade de suporte para continuarmos usando indefinitivamente carvão, petróleo e gás na matriz energética global. E aí é criar espaço de cooperação. O Brasil é um país que pode ser um grande provedor de energia limpa, de hidrogênio verde, e é uma contribuição que pode ser dada em parceria com outros países do mundo que não têm as mesmas oportunidades.
Thank you very much. That was Marina Silva, the Environment Minister for Brazil. She also takes care of climate change. And what I've picked from her is that there are limits for having, but there are no limits for being. There are limits to choose to use fossil fuel, but there would be no limits to right poetry. So just reflect on that as we continue listening to more inspiring speakers this evening. And I would like to bring on board online another amazing speaker, and he is Bill McKibben. Bill is an author, an educator, and an activist. He has dedicated his life to raising awareness about climate change. As the founder of 350.org, the first global grassroots climate campaign, he has mobilized millions to fight for a sustainable future. As a founder of the Third Act, a movement rallying individuals over 60 for climate and racial justice, he pioneers intergenerational efforts. Bill, good evening and welcome.
Well, what a pleasure to be with you all. I wish, of course, that I was there with you in person in Nairobi, one of my favorite cities. But it's good to be able to join you by low carbon Zoom from the other side of the world here in Vermont in the United States, where I live and work. I want to say just a few things. The first is that this gathering comes at a really important moment. 2023 is a year unlike any other in human history. We've seen temperatures in the last 4 months higher than we've ever seen on this planet for at least 125,000 years, which means that higher than any human society that we'd recognize as similar to our own has never endured temperatures like the ones that we've seen. And the effects are, of course, obvious: the fires, the floods, the ongoing tragedies that come when we alter something as fundamental as the climate, how much of the sun's energy stays here close to home. I've spent my life working on that. I wrote the first book about climate change in 1989, so a long time ago. We've seen very slow progress, but that progress is beginning at least a little bit to pick up. And that is thanks to the remarkable work of scientists and engineers, who, among other things, brought us affordable power from the sun and the wind. The cost of solar power and the cost of wind power has dropped 90% in the last decade. We now live on an Earth where the cheapest way to produce energy is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. That is a remarkable, remarkable gift. And if we took it seriously, we could make very rapid progress. We're not making that rapid progress yet. And the reason we're not is because the fossil fuel industry, oil, gas, coal, keeps us from making advances at the speed that science demands. So our job is to stand up to that industry and to demand a new future. That is why I end up going to jail a good many times, trying to block new pipelines and refineries and things. That is why so many people are working so hard. We all share one sky. It knows no borders. The carbon dioxide produced anywhere on Earth mixes across that sky in a matter of days. That sky is where the problem is located. That's where the air is heating up. It's also where the solution is located. It's where the rays of the sun and where the breeze blowing past allow us a new way to power our lives. If we take seriously the idea that we all live under the same sky, then we have a chance here. But that demands action, and it demands it very, very fast. Climate change is the first real timed test that humans have encountered. We have just a few years in order to make dramatic change. It is playing out now in real time. So I think my message to anyone is, if you've been hanging back a little bit or waiting for the right moment to come, the right moment is now. There no longer is any room for delay. We have run out of spare years. If we do not make dramatic progress in the next immediate future, then people will look back at this moment on Earth and say, this is the point when it all began to go truly, truly bad. But they could also look back on 2023 and 2024 and 2025 and think, this is the year when people finally started getting it together, finally began to move at the speed that we require. I do not know which of those two things will happen. Nobody knows. All we know is that the odds of the right thing happening go up if we push hard together. And I will just close by saying that, speaking on behalf of those of us at Third Act, those of us who are older, those of us who have gray hair or no hair at all, will be following the lead of young people and doing everything we can to make change as fast as we can. We may not have that much time left on this earth because we're old, but we will use that time as well as we possibly can to try and make sure that there's a future for those who come after us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. I wanted to throw in a second question, but I think that what you have told us is quite insightful. I will leave it at that. And I would like to invite two esteemed speakers to join me for a short discussion, shifting from vision to action, as we've been urged by Bill. And how are we going to implement this action? How are we going to implement a survival guide? Bringing online, I'm being joined by Ms. Sandrine Dixon de Cleve. She's a co-president, the Club of Rome, and divides her time between leading the Club of Rome, advising, lecturing, and facilitating difficult conversations. Alongside her is Professor Lindiwe Majele Sibanda. She is the chair, CGIAR, or SIGIA, System Board. She's an animal scientist and a practicing farmer with extensive experience serving as a policy advisor to numerous African governments and global institutions. Let's welcome them. And Ms. Dixon, in 2022, you co-authored the book, Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity. And there are scenarios you have developed. Yeah? Okay. All right. I'm told we don't have the other guest, Ms. Sandrine Dixon de Cleve, but we do have Professor Lindiwe Majele Sibanda. Professor Sibanda, my apologies and good evening and welcome to this discussion. As chair of SIGIA System Board, also serving as a practicing farmer and very passionate about farming, considering the extensive experience you have had in different sectors and fields, what does a survival guide mean for you, particularly as a practicing farmer in Africa?
Well, I think the joy to be here and to share experiences from an older lens, but also a practicing practitioner's view. What does it mean? I think the issue is climate change is real. It's hitting us. I remember 2013, where I moderated a session at COP19, where we were talking about shaping development agenda for forests and agriculture. This was in Warsaw, Poland. At that time, climate change, agriculture, and forests were separated. And we tried for the first time to have a conversation together. The scare word that I, as a moderator, used was that by 2025, it seemed so far away. 70% of the population, or half of the world's population, would be facing water scarcity. It is happening now in my own backyard, in my farm. 3 years ago, we ran out of water in Zimbabwe where I'm farming. I'm doing livestock farming, and I'm proud to say I'm raising my cattle off the veldt, but we ran out of water. The animals would come up to the homestead gate and break through because they could see the tap with dripping water in the homestead, yet they didn't have any water. What have I had to do? I've had to cull the animals, de-stock by 70%. I'm left with 30% of my original head. And that's a coping mechanism, and I had no choice. I tried to drill boreholes. The original borehole was at 40 meters. Now I'm told I need to go down 100 meters to get water, and that water would not be even sufficient for the animals I have. So, coping mechanisms, climate change is real. We have to adapt. We have to change the way we've been doing business. But more important, we have to call on technologies, science, the solutions that are on the shelf that we can then adopt and implement. And that's why I'm proud to be chairing the largest public funded entity of research organizations whose main aim is to deliver science and technologies in the face of climate change through transformation of land, water, and food systems. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we'll come back to you. Thank you very much, Professor Sibanda. We'll come back to you for more on actions and practical solutions. But I'd like to invite Ms. Dixon DeCleve to talk to us a bit about her book, Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening and apologies. I was actually watching this wonderful conference on the wrong link, so I was not connected somehow. It's wonderful to follow Professor Liningwe and also Bill McKibben, both very instrumental in very different ways in terms of ensuring that we move forward and develop an Earth for all that is truly respectful of people, planet, and prosperity at the same time. 50 years ago, the Club of Rome, the organization that I am co-president for, indicated very clearly that in the 2020s, we would start to see through alternative scenarios that they have put forward and through modeling that they undertook, that we would start to see some severe tipping points. And I felt that it was my responsibility alongside my colleagues as we commemorated this 50-year anniversary in actually a few years ago, that we start to think through what then is the 21st century way that we can actually build an Earth for all. What are the solutions that we need, shifting, not only focusing on land use, but looking, and I've heard the resume and the kind of summary that was given of the last session, thinking through the role of women, understanding the role of the extractive economy that we have continued to allow to perpetuate the problems that we see, the neo-colonial way in which our economies have taken natural resources away from low-income countries into high-income countries and created a disproportionate material footprint and emissions in the North. What also is the role of the youth? And we have to remember that 50% of our planet is made up of young people. So what we wanted to do collectively as economists and scientists, this is not just my book, it is a book of 6 authors supported by a series of contributors from across the globe and a Transformational Economics Commission, was to first undertake what we call a system dynamic model, to plot out the interactions between social tipping points, environmental tipping points, shifts within our economies, our financial frameworks, and an understanding of what happens on the ground. To then take all of that data and all those algorithms and stress test them against people that are actually practicing new economic theory and thinking through how we can actually apply it in practice. And then producing a publication, which is called Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity, with some real clear pathways forward. So we come through all of that process to 2 key scenarios. One, which is too little, too late scenario, which basically is today the business as usual scenario. And the other, which is the giant leap scenario, which means that we need to implement 5 key turnarounds. And those turnarounds are, most importantly, poverty, inequality, not only between the North and the South or between low income and high income countries, but also within countries. Because what we noticed with those first two was that actually we are growing inequalities in those countries that are supposedly the wealthiest. That well-being has dramatically plummeted in the last 10 years in the United States in particular. That the wealth differential and the lack of wealth distribution has created huge social tensions, not only across the globe, but in particular, once again, in the United States. So that the capitalistic model, the model that actually is anchored in extractive economies, has proven absolutely categorically not to enable people to thrive, and is creating a part of the population that needs to survive. Those are the first two. The third is the importance of empowerment. Empowerment both to bring women into the decision making, because this is a century where we need as much diversity of thinking, of working, of practicing real change, but also the importance of access to education, the importance of access to community leadership, where we see that so many women do show leadership. And we heard about women in particular on the front lines in agriculture, where many of these women don't even own the land that they actually have been working on.
All right.
Those
Thank
are
you
the
so much.
three
If you can
terms.
just hold that thought there so that then we can go quickly to Professor Sibanda to just quickly reflect a bit on the key messages that you have passed and look at the role that governments perhaps can play and the key players can put in looking for practical solutions to these issues that you've raised. Professor Sibanda.
Thank you. This is a war that we cannot win without governments taking a lead in creating a conducive policy environment. What do I mean by a conducive policy environment? Let's go to the area of technology development. We have invested in research, the monies are not enough, but we have gene banks where we have stored, collected genetic material that may hold the answer to climate smart, resilient crops that we can go back to. Our researchers are seized with the challenge of generating those technologies, but for as long as we don't bring in private sector who will help us multiply and get the technologies to every household, this will remain on the shelf. What does government need to do? It needs to create the policies that will allow the technologies to be accessed, affordable, and sustainably utilized by the people who need them the most, which is the farmers and the consumers who buy the food. We are currently experiencing very high inflation translating to high food prices. Part of that is because we've been caught unawares. We were not ready for the challenge of climate change that we're facing. Had we been climate smart to diversify our food basket, we could be having better foods that our grandmothers, particularly in Africa, used to feed us on, but we've pushed them back and gone for novel foods that are more expensive to buy. So governments, call to action. Can we walk the talk? Can we accompany technology development by incentivizing private sector, by putting money in research? Currently, our governments are not putting enough. Currently, the organization I lead has close to just 1 billion. We're on a campaign to push this to $2 billion a year. And even that is not enough. We need all hands on deck to push more technologies, but more important, to get them to the farmer, to get them to the consumer, and government needs to play an active role. Thank you.
Thank you. You've mentioned the private sector And that got me thinking, where are they and what is their role? We have Tim Christopherson. He is a Vice President of Climate Action at Salesforce. And he is transited from a distinguished public service career to the private sector in 2022, that's last year. He's going to offer some unique insights, and he talks a bit about the urgency that the latest IPCC report has highlighted. We are eager to look at some of the strategies that he will be talking about. So let's listen to these critical matters.
Hello, Global Landscapes Forum. I'm Tim Christopherson, Vice President of Climate Action at Salesforce. We're one of the world's largest technology companies and a world leader in artificial intelligence and customer relationship management. We're also a sustainability leader, and I would like to make 3 points today at this plenary. One is about leadership, the second is about coordination, and the third is about finance. Leadership is now needed at all levels. The climate and nature crisis have reached such proportions and urgency that more is needed from all of us. The leadership we can provide with voluntary action through the private sector, for example, our $100 million commitment for carbon dioxide removal technologies, a $100 million ecosystem restoration and climate justice grant fund, and our purchasing of high quality carbon credits is essential, but we have to be clear, voluntary action of the private sector is no longer enough, especially if only 1/3 of the world's 2,000 largest companies have some kind of climate action plan. That is why Salesforce advocates strongly for global mandatory carbon and nature disclosure for all large companies. My second point is about coordination. If you imagine winning the 1.5-degree target and the Sustainable Development Goals, imagine it like a team sport. We all have our roles to play. Everybody needs to know exactly what they're doing. But until recently, few people knew the rules. Some of the players were playing against their own team, and there was little coordination between public sector, private sector, and civil society. That is now about to change. It's essential for the UN and for governments to be the team captain and coordinate. The private sector can provide the entrepreneurship, the innovation, the sheer financial muscle and power of scaling that only the private sector can bring. If we coordinate well, we can reach the 1.5-degree target, the global biodiversity framework targets, and the SDGs. My third point is about finance. All of this will cost money. It will cost much less than inaction on climate and on nature is already costing us. But it will need upfront finance. We all need to invest more, and we need to come together in public-private partnerships to ensure that the just transition to a net zero, nature-positive world is sufficiently funded. I would like to give one example where all of this is coming together: leadership, coordination, and finance, and that is the Global Mangrove Breakthrough. We are financing this initiative that aims to conserve and restore an additional 15 million hectares of mangroves worldwide. There are now dozens of partners involved. It will be a $4 billion constructive and collaborative effort with capital at every level available for mangrove projects. This is leadership, it's coordination, and it's finance at its best. We need many more examples like that, and the Global Landscapes Forum is one of the fora where this kind of coordination can happen. So let's imagine winning 2023 is the midpoint of the SDGs. We have to stay optimistic. That is essential for success. Let's imagine winning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We still do have Professor Sibanda and Ms. Dixon online, and I would just like to go to them quickly, briefly, in 1 minute each. What is that one question on your mind that keeps coming back ahead of the COP28 and also taking on some of the thoughts or points that have been made by Bill Christopherson?
Well, do you want me to go first, maybe?
Yes, Sandrine.
Yeah. So first of all, let me finish what I was trying to describe as the turnarounds, because I could only finish 3. And there are 2 very important ones, which is energy and also food. And these are absolutely essential, and they will be covered at COP. But the problem is that what we will see is many statements, as we've just heard from Salesforce, which is that by investing in specific sectors and not actually changing the current system that perpetuates poverty and inequality, we are not going to solve our climate crisis. The two key aspects that came out of all of our analysis is that inequality and poverty will continue to be the most grave existential threat. So what does that mean for COP? That basically means that we need to have leadership on fossil fuel phase out, that we need to ensure that we actually get a deal, and I think we probably will, on food and land use so that we move towards regenerative agriculture, that we not only reduce our emissions, but that we very much focus on the role of people and prosperity in all of the decisions that we actually take. That's what Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity, is all about. But that's also what I'm having in terms of conversations at the highest level, from the UN Secretary General that I was just with, all the way down to local farmers, who all want the same thing. We must emerge from this emergency with new systems that put people, planet, and prosperity at the center, that ensure that we have both our financial and our economic systems that support low-income countries, not only as they're faced with crises, but so they can actually build the alternative future that they deserve. And that means a new financial architecture that addresses debt cancellation, that addresses special drawing rights, a new financial architecture that doesn't just finance technology, but that fundamentally changes so that wealth distribution goes to the many rather than just to the few.
Thank you. People, planet, prosperity. That's the message, and much more. Professor Sibanda.
Thank you. So for me, we need to stop the either or game. It's not an issue of energy or food or water or land. It's all the systems that we need for survival. Let's put them all on the table. And most important, let's address the question, as we transform the food, land, water, and energy systems, what finance do we need to do this in a sustainable way? And can we put the money on the table that will address the challenges that we face and the technologies that we need so that they are adopted, developed, and adopted? So, money for all systems, not just for food, for energy, for water, and land transformation. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. I wish we had time on us, but as I say, time is up. We don't have so much time. Thank you so much to our guests this evening, Ms. Sandrine Dixon de Cleve, co-president of the Club of Rome, and Professor Lindiwe Majele Sibanda, chair of SIGIA, and also an animal scientist and a practicing farmer. The conversation will continue offline, online, in all our small groupings, at the grassroots, wherever we are. Let's continue discussing this and keep the conversation going on. But I would like to hear from you who are here now. Take a minute to connect with your neighbor. Say hello. Do you know each other? You've been here for 2 days. Is there any question that you have? Any issue that is burning on your mind that you'd like to discuss? You may want to pick it up again when we go out to the reception to discuss that. Those of us who are listening to us online, thousands of you tuning in from across the world, we are going to collect any thoughts that you have, any questions on Slido, and the responses are going to be shown on the screen. Please continue talking to your neighbor in 1 minute. And we also encourage you to use social media, go to X, formerly Twitter, using the hashtag GLF Nairobi. We value your feedback, your comments, your suggestions, and takeaways from this conference. Please send in your comments there, hashtag GLF Nairobi. Let's hear what you have to say. Give us feedback. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce a very special person who is definitely going to inspire you. He's Otto Sharma. He's the author and senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management and founding chair of the Pre-Sensing Institute. Hello. Hello. Let's listen to Mr. Otto Sharma.
My name is Otto Sharma. I want to invite you to a brief systems thinking-based reality meditation that is beginning with the current state of the system and then tuning into emerging future possibilities. What you see here is what's often used in systems thinking as a metaphor, right, for the different layers of systems. The iceberg model with the visible parts above the waterline, here the symptoms of the polycrisis, and the root issues more below the waterline that shape the behavior of that system. What we are focusing on really as change makers across all systems, and that is improving the quality of relationships. And it has to do with shifting the inner place from that we operate. And that, you could call that kind of shifting the quality of awareness or consciousness from that we operate. So that's kind of the less visible, the invisible dimension of social change that is below the surface and yet has a huge influence on our effectiveness really as change makers. Another source of inspiration really is this quote by Ilya Prigogine, when a system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the entire system to a higher order. So he's talking about when a system is moving from one state of stability to another one, there's in between, there is this moment of chaos, what's called the bifurcation point, where small differences can have an outsized impact whether the system is moving in one or the other direction. When a system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the entire system to a higher order. What do we see? What is this all converging towards? I think it all has to do with decolonizing, right? Which is really a profound shift of our paradigm and mindset from extractive to regenerative. It has to do with a profound ego to ego shift in our relationships and in our behavior, with a shift from just reacting to the issues of the past towards sensing and actualizing emerging future possibilities. The question is, if you look at the bottom of all this, so what is kind of really the operating system that is linking all these phenomena? And I think it has to do, I don't know what the right name is, I call it matrix machinization, but what I really mean is that all the behavior here is, almost all of that is manipulated and driven from outside through manipulation, is disconnected from our deeper human awareness and our deeper agency and intentionality. So those are the two forces, right? Those are the two directions. We are pulled backward at the same time as we experience this profound opening forward towards planetary healing, regeneration, ego to ego, and sensing and actualizing emerging future possibilities. And as we form these islands of coherence, what we experience is this amazing activation of larger parts in the system that slowly are beginning to be uplifted into a new way of operating. I think that's my account of what I am experiencing in working with many different systems in many different places. I want to leave you with a question. Where are really the true seeds of this profound renewal that we know we can activate, that is beginning to be activated in a few places, but often is not? And I would say the seeds of that profound renewal are in our hearts, and they are in our relationships, how we relate to each other and how we relate to our planet.
Thank you. And he sent in a much longer video, 13 minutes long. You have seen the QR code there. Scan it. It's also on your programs, and you can access that version. And you've been asked a question. How do we take action for our survival? I think change, as he said, begins with you and I. It's in you as an individual. I hope you're inspired. Are we inspired? Can I hear it in the affirmative? We are? Hello, where you are? Thank you. And now we're bringing on board our last speaker for this session, Laila June. She's an indigenous musician, an author, community organizer. And through her blend of music, which is quite captivating, she has informed perspectives rooted in her deep academic and cultural studies. Laila June inspires audiences around the world towards personal growth, collective harmony, and ecological healing. Laila, good evening.
Good evening. Yat eshik aroshidne. Greetings, my people and my relatives. I'm from the Nanisht Ejitachitni clan of the Dene Nation. We are desert people. We are from the Southwest United States. We are what they call Native Americans or indigenous peoples. We were here before America existed. And we have a lot to tell the world today and a lot to share with the world today. I'm so honored to be here and to connect with folks around the world, especially folks in Africa who I believe are our indigenous counterparts, who carry so much wisdom and knowledge from their cultures and their communities that is ancient and beautiful. And we have been through such similar experiences of colonization, where our people were denigrated, where our languages were prohibited, where our people were told that we were nothing, and where we were mistreated. And I'm honored to stand with you all to reclaim who we are as beautiful and to reclaim who we are as leaders in the world who have sciences of our own that are not Eurocentric sciences, but are earth-based sciences, Afrocentric, indigenous-centric sciences that are arguably much more advanced because they sustained cultures very, very, very many thousands of years. And so I'm here to represent and honor my ancestors. I'm here to honor your ancestors as well, whoever you are, and the sustainability science that existed deep inside of our lineages. And I just really wholeheartedly believe, my PhD research really focused on how Native Americans created food systems across North and South America that lasted for thousands and thousands of years. And to me, this is proof that indigenous wisdom holds the keys to sustainability. And if we keep learning from them, we can make our civilizations more civilized and more refined and more intact and more in touch with the land and the water and the cycles of the earth. And so I just really want to advocate for that all of us think about the indigenous peoples of the land that we're standing on and our own indigenous roots, no matter who we are, and reach into them, because the world has told us they are primitive when in fact they are the most advanced science on the planet. So please honor those things. And I'm honored to be a small part of this. And there's lots of research of mine online if you want to look into it. I'm just going to sing a quick little song because I'm also a musician. And yeah, we'll just go from there.
Yeah, before the song, Lila, you've talked a bit about the promise of, or the role of indigenous leadership for planetary survival. But how does the idea of a survival guide make you feel? If you can answer that and then jump into the song.
Sure. Yes, of course. I follow your lead here. Well, a survival guide makes me feel excited and happy because what used to work in the past century is not going to work this century. We are not going to have the stability that we've enjoyed, the climatic stability, the soil stability, etc. We're going to need a guide to get through this century. And this century, I believe, the guide is not just what we do, but how and why we do it. So, for example, the value systems, to me, is part of the survival guide. Value systems that run our entire cultures. If our value system is profit maximization, that's not going to work. But if our value system is reciprocity, reverence, respect, responsibility, restraint, regeneration, and relationality, seeing all of creation as our relative, that to me is just as much a part of the survival guide as how we implement those things and what we do, but really the inner software of the human being that we run on, the program that we run on is so important. And that is our value systems as a society, what we deem as valuable, what we deem as important. And if profit maximization continues to be what we value as important, we will perish, period. Because that type of greed was never meant to live on this beautiful planet. It was never meant to succeed here. This planet was designed for reciprocity and generosity. And that's the only thing that lasts. Okay. Shall I go ahead and start the song?
Now to the song, please. We're waiting.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Indigenous people, shine your light, we are equal, yeah, yeah. I remember the days when our prayers were illegal. I remember the days when being Indian was lethal, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had a rough past, but get ready for the sequel. Get ready for the glorious comeback of our people, oh, yeah. Rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I could feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I could hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. All nations rise. Rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. With forgiveness as my bow and my prayers as my arrows, pull it back and let go. I watch them fly like arrows. Have hope, have hope. With compassion as our shield and faith down to our marrow, we will walk the pollen path even when it gets narrow. Yeah, yeah. Resurrect, yes, you can bet that we seen the single mama raising children on the res. We seen domestic violence tear apart what we have left. We seen the alcohol take it all and leave us dead. We've seen the children take the dread anymore. No, we can't take the dread anymore. Or, no, I won't take the dread anymore. 'Cause I can't stand the dread anymore. Yes, it's a war, but we've seen it all before. And now we know we can change it, 'cause that's why we were born. We know we are the ones that we have been waiting for. Yes, we are the ones that Grandma has been praying for. So rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I could feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I could hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. Yay.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Lila, you are amazing. Thank you so much.
You guys are all amazing and beautiful. I'm honored to share space with you. My prayers are with you.
Please repeat that. We were so excited clapping. We missed what you said, Lila.
I said, you guys are all amazing and beautiful, and I'm honored to share space with you. And I wish I could be there in person. And my prayers are with you, and I believe in all of you with all my heart.
Thank you. Thank you. You should see us here. Lots of us struggling with the tears, but so beautiful. Thank you so much, Lila. We are so honored to have had you this evening, hearing about your survival guide and your indigenous community and the efforts that you're putting into place to ensure that the earth survives. Thank you, audience. You've also been very lovely. Great participants. Asante sana. Thank you very much for being here today and for your commitment to addressing the climate crisis. Let us embark on this journey together. It's not a one-man's journey. It's for all of us. Let's pave the way towards a decarbonized world where landscapes thrive and humanity flourishes. I thank you so much. Before we conclude, I'll pass this over to the MC, Elias, and let's keep inspiring and stirring each other into action. Thank you.
Let me also test my vocals. Yeah, that was really ecstatic from Lila. Thanks very much, Ruth, for moderating our closing plenary. And our amazing speakers, thank you very much. And to all of you here, thank you for joining us for the last 2 days. Come on, guys, you deserve better than that. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us for the last 2 days and putting the building blocks in place for a new vision for Earth. I think we now have a new vision for Earth. Is that right? Yes. What is next? Come on, guys. What is next? Action! Nice. I love that. So, we hope you're leaving this event feeling inspired and emboldened to play your part in forging a brighter path forward for all of us. Yeah, so I had the honor to be one of your MCs for the past 2 days. But now, I would like to wear another hat. This is for a person that has been part of the youth movement for 7 years now. Almost a decade ago, a young woman who is actually in this room with us, of course, the incredible Salina Abraham, stood on the stage of the 2015 Global Landscapes Forum in Paris and asked the audience to consider youth as an intersection similar to how gender, race, class is considered. GLF and C4ECRAF listened. Since then, they have been actively collaborating with the Youth in Landscapes Initiative, a growing network and movement that is steered by the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, Youth for Nature, and the International Forestry Students Association. Come on, guys, make some noise. Since then, the Youth in Landscapes Initiative has grown in members, in actions, and in hope. And today, we have the pleasure to make two joyful announcements. Are you guys ready for them? We are excited to welcome to the Youth in Landscapes Initiative Steering Committee the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, the official youth constituency under the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. Yes, we said we are growing. And I said I have two joyful announcements, right? So I'll keep the last one for tomorrow, right? Do you guys agree? Anyways, so we are thrilled to share a new memorandum of understanding between the Youth in Landscapes Initiative and C4ECRAF and GLF. Our must thank you to the GLF and C4ECRAF leadership for your trust and collaboration. I strongly believe that our joint visions for the earth can change the course of humanity and create a more just, resilient, and peaceful world. Guys, you don't want to clap? I think you'll clap for me when I stand here. Yeah, so I am honored to invite Dr. Eliane Barijoro, the Chief Executive Officer of C4ECRAF and Director General ECRAF, to join me as we celebrate this moment. And I'm going to ask her to join me for a selfie moment. This is what you get when you're an MC at such an event. So if you would like to stand and be part of the selfie, please. Smile, everyone. Thanks very much, Eliane. At this moment, allow me to hand over to our amazing host for these last 2 days to close this conference. Over to you, Eliane.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us at GLF Nairobi 2023, A New Vision for Earth. What an incredible conference. I would like to give a huge thank you to our donors, partners, and sponsors for making this conference such a success. The Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Nuclear Protection of Germany, the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, the Government of Luxembourg, the Global Environment Facility, the World Bank, the Food Systems Land Use and Restoration Impact Program, ProGreen, the UNCCD G20 Global Land Initiative, Breakthrough Strategies and Solutions, the Robert Bosch Foundation, the Lavazza Foundation, the Crop Trust, Salesforce, and the 33 charter members and engaged partners of the GLF, along with our valued media partners. And thank you all as well to the session hosts, dedicated volunteers, social media ambassadors, team on the ground, and participants, and our incredible online audience. You have tuned in and been such a critical, active part of the conversation. Finally, thank you to all the C4 staff on campus and all over the world, including a special thank you to operations, IT, and last but not least, Peter Murunga and the security team. Over the past 2 days, we've had the immense privilege of connecting with some of the greatest change makers here on our C4 ICRAF Nairobi campus. And I'm so inspired by everyone involved, whether you joined us in person in Nairobi or virtually. This event has reached over 26 million people online. Yeah, let that sink in. 26 million people online. Through web, social media, and online news. And the number keeps growing as today's global conversation continues and takes a life of its own. Just think of that beautiful song we were able to witness tonight. People have engaged almost 200,000 times on social media to share their questions, their hopes, and their solutions. And more than 7,000 people registered from 130 countries. 721 of them joined us here in person in Nairobi. A further 100 joined us from our C4 ICRAF campus in Bogor, Indonesia, for a national dialogue that included a session at GLF Nairobi. And about 250 people joined us through watch parties from GLF community-based chapters in 10 countries, sparking a moment for collaboration and action. Together, we have imagined a new vision for Earth. Our vision is big. We need a survival guide for the planet, but we want to go farther than that. We want to become the ancestors future generations deserve. And C4 ICRAF, together with the Global Landscape Forum, is ready to support this vision and build and implement its realization together with all of you. Over the past 2 days, we've listened to the perspective and experiences of community activists, artists, musicians, poets, practitioners, policymakers, funders, the development community, scientists, journalists, and more. And what we've heard are some clear calls to action that ask for our very best collective effort. To release ourselves of the anxiety of our time, to commit fully to collective transformation and embrace real solutions that are already working on the ground in communities, solutions that are transforming lives. There is hope. You have shown us what we need to do. You've shared what we need to rethink, how we need to rethink our food systems so they're more sustainable, with the sovereignty and stewardship of people and landscapes. And that we need food and seed sovereignty, sustainable wildlife management, peatland management, and dry land restoration. There was consensus from you that we need to scale policy instruments that harmonize the climate, biodiversity, and land nexus while centering the most affected people and areas. And we've listened to your calls for more funding to find future solutions and funding that scales up shared solutions we already have. This is how we can ensure a just and decarbonized world. And it's not something we can solve alone. It will take all of us. Every fraction of degree matters. The sooner we can implement solutions to climate change, the sooner we can avoid irreversible losses and trigger critical climate tipping points. We need to adopt a justice lens and think about how to decolonize our landscapes and heal our relationship with our land. Staying within planetary boundaries is imperative, and it's possible. We need the power of women, indigenous peoples, forest communities, and smallholder farmers, and youth. Young people with decision-making power. Young people who know they deserve better than business as usual. Young people with imagination, willpower, and collaborative spirit to create an equitable worth, a healthy earth, an earth that thrives. And what we should all take from these 2 days is a deep sense of purpose and hope. The experience we've shared together will help us shape a global action plan for climate, biodiversity, and food resilience. And I so thank you for joining us at GLF Nairobi and for sharing in this moment as we transform our planet. It is also my pleasure to welcome the Forest and Livelihoods Assessments Research and Engagement, or FLAIR, network to the C4 ICRAF campus and to officially open the 9th annual FLAIR meeting. The FLAIR network has a mission to advance knowledge at the intersection of forests and livelihoods and to ensure this is translated into policy and practice. The organization is based at University of Notre Dame in the United States, and some 200 people from more than 40 countries around the world from the network will join us over the next few days, many of whom are here tonight. I want to thank FLAIR for a strong partnership and wish all participants a successful meeting. And finally, thank you again for everyone here joining us at GLF Nairobi. Now, for our participants here in person, please join us to mark the conclusion of the conference and the start of the next. Over at the Karura stage, we are beginning another night of musical performance co-hosted by the GLF with the FLAIR network. Food and drinks will be provided, so please head over to Karura stage to join in. And then for everyone here, wherever you're in, whether you're in this room with me or tuning in at home, I have one final message. When I opened this conference yesterday morning, I asked you to see it as a celebration of what is possible. And this evening, I hope you can take what you've learned, the contacts you've made, and the inspiration you've received, and I hope we can celebrate together as we look forward to a new vision for Earth. Merci. Murakoze cyane, asante sana, gracias, thank you, dankeschön.